Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream, the eventual live stream. I'm not sure what's happening. We had a live stream, but unfortunately, YouTube did something, or I did something. I'm not sure who. It's easier to blame somebody else. Always blame YouTube. Not sure what happened, but we lost the previous live stream. It went down, and we have a new one. So, well, we can begin with that. So I want to say hello to whoever's on the stream tonight. We have Master Templar, great to see you. We have CGM, great to have you on. Thanks for moderating. Reagan Elitis Leads is here too. Hi, Max and all. Post a link on the other chat, Max. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Killer. And thanks for moderating tonight. Young Ralph is here. Great to see you, Young Ralph. Number 3, great to see you too. Welcome everyone to the second live stream for tonight. The first one had some sort of technical problems, so apologies for that. I'm trying to fix things here. So we're going to talk about, of course, the Labour conference a bit, what's happening in the Middle East, and a few other topics as well. So I hope everyone is well. I hope you had a nice weekend. I hope you enjoyed the Sunday roast. Just myself and Political X. We had a nice chat about a whole things. We recorded it, I think, on Friday, so it we didn't know anything about what was happening in Israel at the time, so we didn't pick up on that story. But I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you'll enjoy the next one. Buffering again. No. I hate YouTube. Because my connection, it's saying on my software is perfect, so I really don't understand why it will be buffering. But let's try. Let's struggle through this. It was better just you and just the two of you. Ah, okay. Thanks very much, Stu. Yeah, we're just trying out different things. We decided we had a problem with one of the guests. One of the guests had a problem, I should say, not a problem with the guest, but one of the guests had a problem. So we decided let's just go the two of us to see what we can talk about, and we managed to talk for over an hour on a whole range of things. So lack of beardies on the roast. Yes, I decided to get rid of the beard for a bit, see how it goes. I want to get some feedback from people on that. But before we get into the main topics, of course, of tonight, Max, can you put the hamster on the wheel? I'm trying. It's saying on my software it says everything is good on my side, but it must be a problem on YouTube's side because my internet connection is perfect, and my software is saying everything's above board. So I'm not sure what's going on. But let's try anyway. So let's start off with this video here from Times Radio, where they interview people on the street about Keir Starmer.
Many Labour politicians. No.
Okay, we should have sound, but I don't hear. Oh my goodness, what's happening tonight? I'm
not interested in.
No sound. My God, what is happening? Everything is working, and then you do something, and everything stops working.
No. Okay. Good.
Oh my goodness. Try again. No, nothing. Why is it not working? No, there's some problem here. This is really annoying. No. Oh, goodness. But Max can't hear for some reason. You guys can hear, but you... It's always been working. Why is it not working on my side? Why is it... It's not muted. That's really weird. You guys can hear it, but I can't. Hear it, then I can't go.
Okay.
I can't hear anything.
There we go.
Okay, finally. Okay, the problem was the user once again. I had the the headset in the wrong socket. Okay. Thanks, Ruth. Sound is good. Okay, let's restart. Apologies once again. This is not going so well.
Labour politicians. No. No, I'm not interested in. No. Okay. Oh, do I miss the wrong idea?
I've got an amount.
You gay skill.
Okay, there we go.
Keith Starmer.
Did you say Keith Starmer?
Keith Starmer.
No.
What's her name? Nando.
Lisa.
Lisa Nando.
Lisa Nando. Okay. Does anyone know who Lisa Nando is? Keith. Keith Starmer.
Keir Starmer's with Labour, ain't he? Yeah.
So Keir Starmer.
What about Keir Starmer? Do you feel like you know much about him?
Probably know too much, to be honest with you, and I don't like the man.
Is that the new Prime Minister?
No.
A bit lacklustre, I would say, yeah.
And are there any other Labour politicians you can name?
Not really, no.
Is he the one who's banned the cigarettes for like in a few years ago? Or that's what he's banned. Oh.
Yeah.
Anti-Biffa.
It's like, isn't he the one who's going to ban cigarettes? No, that's Rishi Sunak. Ah, okay. Somehow I don't believe that the girl understands who Rishi Sunak is either.
Still like him as a person. It's not to do with if he's banning cigarettes or not. Just doesn't seem like a very screwed on geezer, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Algerina.
Yeah, no, that's right.
New Album. Yeah, and there's a few of them.
Facially, you'll know them, but names you won't know them if you do.
Diane Abbott.
There we go. Okay, you're on for 2. Anyone else?
Jeremy Corbyn used to be. I don't know if he is anymore.
Yeah. He's no longer part of the political party. Yeah.
There used to be Tony Blair.
Yeah. Former Prime Minister. Yeah.
Poor guy is desperate. Jeremy Corbyn, I remember that guy. Tony Blair, he used to be a member of the Labour Party. This is pretty desperate.
Does stuff.
That's all I know, really.
I'm not very good with names, but I do follow politics. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not a name person.
Do you reckon you could match any names up if we gave you a full list? Did you know David Lammy?
Yes.
Do you recognise? Do you have any idea what his position might be?
Isn't it?
Angela Rayner?
Oh, I know all the names, but what exactly they do, it's not springing straight to mind.
If we were to say Angela Rayner, people seem to know who she is.
Yeah, I've heard of her, yeah.
Yeah.
I think because she's from the northwest, she's very down to earth. She tells it like it is, no nonsense, and she just is on the side of everyone in society, not just the rich.
Great. What would they need to say to you to make you want to vote for them? What really if they could say one thing to you?
Legalise weed.
There we go. What about you?
Honestly, I have no idea. It's proper higher pay rates, like minimum wage. That's it.
Sort out Liverpool's poverty and homelessness.
Really? Is that how you feel?
Yeah. You've come away from the uni roots, so it's not Labour anymore. Once you come away from uni roots.
Do you feel they've got a message that kind of reaches out to you at the moment?
No, not at all.
Eek. So people either don't know who the Labour Party members are, the shadow cabinet are, can't name the leader, or are completely against what the current Labour Party stand for. Now, I don't think this is going to make a huge amount of difference because the Labour Party are leading in the polls, and it's and the speech that Keir Starmer gave today and the speeches over the last number of days have been pretty good compared to, well, the bar has been set pretty low by the Tories last week, so anything would be better than that. And I think they delivered pretty well. And Keir Starmer's speech about, some of the issues that he's pushing at the moment, and I think these are good issues to be pushing. These are good policies if he's going to follow through on them, of course. So he's talking about building 1.5 million homes on the grey belt, and he's going to build new it'd be called Labour New Homes. So there is a talk of having Georgian-style buildings. Now, if you're not familiar with Georgian-style buildings, have a look on Google. So they're pretty nice, really nice buildings from the Georgian period. I don't know if that's the plan, really. But 1.5 million homes. This would be actually maintaining a level that the Tories had been promising to maintain. But of course, the Tories fell far short of that. But they are saying that they're going to build millions of homes. Now, I've a few problems with that, a few questions. Where are you going to find the workers? Because at the moment, it's difficult for developers to find workers, also because of the ending of freedom of movement. So it's going to be difficult for them to find the workers at the moment. It's going to be even more difficult in the future, unless, the Keir Starmer administration works out some sort of agreement with the European Union, or unless they ease up on restrictions on immigration. It's going to be difficult to find the staff you need to start this building project. They're going to fight the cost of living crisis. Okay. Good, that's great news, but how? They've been talking about growing the economy, and that's going to fix the problem. But the problem with growing the economy is that you need to invest, you need to spend public money, and on the this is probably where there's going to be a bit of conflict, because if Keir Starmer wants to deliver on something and Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, doesn't want to spend the money, it's going to create a lot of problems within the party. End the non-dom, fund the NHS, and reform. So reform has been the buzzword, I think, at the whole conference. This idea that they're going to reform the NHS. What does reforming the NHS mean? Well, I think it means selling part of it off. They're saying that, we have to engage with the private sector. We can't get away with... let me just bring that up. We can't get away with business as usual. We have to find something else. So we have to reform the NHS. But of course, this means privatization, more privatization. There's almost nothing left of the NHS to be privatized. And Wes Streeting, who will no doubt be the health secretary in the next government, he's supportive of privatization. Now, privatization per se is not a bad thing. What I mean by that is, for example, in Italy, we have different regions, and each region has its own healthcare system, but all under the state umbrella one. But there is a public-private agreement in the region where I am. So when you go to the GP, you don't pay, unlike in Ireland. But when you go to, for example, when you go to the public hospital, if you want some sort of surgery or if you want some sort of treatment, you have the choice of waiting or paying and not waiting, which is pretty much the same anywhere. But the case when it comes to the private healthcare system is that there's a push from the public one is pushing people into the private one. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be probably treated by the same doctor in the same hospital. It's just the private sector is using that, and somebody's making money out of it. Also, the public service is making money out of it because they're renting out the clinic or the room or whatever to the private doctor, and the private doctor is paying for use of that facility. But it's strictly regulated, highly regulated, and there is if you do have to rely on the private sector, part of that is compensated by the state. So it's not a pure private healthcare system. Now, I'm not an expert on this. It would be good to get somebody maybe on the Sunday roast, or I can try and interview a doctor in Italy about this who could explain it much better than I could. But we can't use, there's not one size fits all, but you can't change the UK system in a way that, well, let's just copy Germany, or let's copy France, or let's copy Italy. You can't do it like that, because it was built from the ground up to be in a particular way. And I think the best way for the NHS is a national service, not a public-private sector involvement, not the involvement of the private sector. So I'm concerned about what Keir Starmer and West Streeting will do to the NHS. I know what their planning is, they will offload some of the waiting list onto the private sector, saying, well, if people can afford it to go privately, well, then let's just send them privately to ease the list. And in the short term that makes sense, but it can't be a long-term strategy. 20% VAT, and of course, once the private sector get their nails into the public, into a public entity like the NHS, they don't want to let go. They'll milk it. Okay, there's another part of the one of the policies is 20% VAT on private schools, and this money would go to state schools. So it makes sense to most people. This is not the abolition of private schools. It's just making them pay VAT like they're businesses, and most of them are businesses. We talked a bit about that on the Sunday roast as well. The Labour Party also want to invest more in police, so they want to hire more police officers. Once again, it's a bit like building more homes. Where are these police officers going to come from? And if you think of the last 13 years, the Tories have been running down the police service, underfunding it, and allowing people, skilled police officers, people who work in the community, people with good connections in the community, they have resigned or they have moved into other sectors, and those jobs have not been filled, which means there's a massive gap, and this means that you don't have enough police officers walking the beat, meeting with members of the community, building relations with the community. And then this is why you're starting to see a rise in, for example, knife crime. So the Labour Party are planning to undo that, but that's going to take maybe even a generation. Like it's shocking how quickly the Tories can destroy something, knowing that it will take a generation to fix. They also talked about new technical colleges, and they're going to have a real living wage, and they're going to ban 0-hour contracts. Now, when they talk about banning 0-hour contracts, they haven't gone into too much detail, but I imagine it's banning them for people who don't want them. So employers will not be able to force somebody onto a 0-hour contract. The 0-hour contracts will exist if somebody decides, I want to work a 0-hour contract. So they won't be pushed by employers, they'll be pushed by employees, which makes a lot more sense. Frankly, I think we should get rid of 0-hour contracts altogether, but maybe there are some areas where it makes sense to maintain a 0-hour contract. Let me read some more of your comments, guys. For the love of God, Max, don't listen to anyone asking you to sing. Oh, sorry, I thought it was a comment for a moment. Rushin's mailed me all of those. Tories are doing a Hamas on British online world, and this is the end of the beginning of the end. It's the next year Britain will be worse. The internet's reception in North will be worse than the internet reception in North Korea. The Tories have to go. Really, like the general election they're talking about next year, it should be happening today. Okay, tomorrow. It couldn't come sooner because the Tories have to go. West sounds like a village up north that you've never heard of. West Reeting. It's a very strange name. I was introduced to a lot of names that I've never really heard of before. I should have known, like Keir. Keir is not a very popular name, but of course it has very important roots in the Labour movement. But West sounds like West Streeting. It sounds like a Hollywood actor or a Hollywood director. Was it Wes something else? Wes Craven. Yeah, he was a guy. It's short for Wesley Crusher. If you ban 0-hour contracts, can't businesses just go the self-employed contractor route? That's a possibility, yes. They could just say, look, we're not going to hire you unless you have, you set up a company yourself. But I don't see, that's not feasible for somebody who, is doing a few hours once a week or something like that. So yes, the employers could force people into that type of contract. So there will be always loopholes, and it's important that the Department of Work and Pensions, whoever takes over from that, I should know who the shadow secretary is. They keep changing all the time, but whoever the new Secretary of State for the Department of Work and Pensions should be able to close any loopholes if necessary. West Racing sounds like a second-hand car salesman from Action. I'm technically on a 0-hour contract, but had always been treated as a full-time worker, which is not right, because you should be they should be paying a pension for you, paying into pension contributions. They should be paying. This is a big problem, that if companies are able to hire people on worse conditions, they're going to do that. Glittergate, yes. So, where did I put it? Here? No, that's not it. Where is Glittergate? I had a video on Glittergate. I'll bring it up after. So, Keir Starmer makes pitch to Tory voters looking in horror at dissent of party. Now, what's really worrying, or maybe it's good for the Labour Party, but I find it really worrying how a lot of pro-Tory elements have come out and supported Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves and their speeches. So there were people from GB News, yes, Gammon Brexit News, were coming out in support of the Labour Party following the conference. Ex-Tories have come out, not members of Parliament, of course, but ex-members. But a lot of journalists, people who write for the frigging Spectator, have come out in support of. Was it? I forget what her name is, but how she's one that came out recently and said, yeah, this is a really good speech, and Labour have the ideas, which is either really good news or really bad news. So Keir Starmer has called on Conservative voters looking in horror at the dissent of your own party to join Labour, as he had vowed to create a Britain built to last. In a keynote speech at the annual party conference in Liverpool, the Labour leader expressed his ambition for 2 terms in government to heal 13 years of Tory wounds, through a decade of national renewal. I think you're going to need more than 13 years. In a pitch to Blue Wall voters, Sir Keir said the government's mindset is to exploit problems, not solve them. He added, so if you're a Conservative voter who despairs of this, if you look in horror at the descent of your party into the murky waters of populism and instability, I imagine, with no argument for economic change. If you feel that our country needs a power that fights for our union, our environment, the rule of law, family life, the careful bond between this generation and the next, then let me tell you, Britain already has one, and you can join it. It's called the Labour Party. Now let's go through a few of these things that he's mentioned here. So yes, he's correct about the murky waters of populism and instability. This is what the Tories are going for. This is because Lee Anderson, 30p Lee Anderson, said the quiet part out loud when he said that, the Tories can't win on Brexit and Boris. We need to go down the culture war route. And, Keir Starmer's not mentioning the culture wars, but he's talking here about populism. He says that the country needs a party that conserves. Now, this is where he got a bit of flack a few months ago when he talked about, well, we're the real Conservative party. Now, when he meant Conservative, I presume, maybe interesting one, of course, following the Labour victory in Scotland a few days ago. Yes, he's nailing his colours to the mast here. I'm a unionist, and I'm proud of it. We'll see how that works out at the general election, because unless there's tactical voting, once again, it's difficult to see what Labour can offer the Scots. But then I was asking the same question before the recent by-election, and the result came back pretty good for Labour. But then remember, that's a by-election. It's not, you can't emulate it. Oh, a bit of buffering. Damn it. Not sure what's happening tonight. I'll have to look into it for Friday. Anyway, let's... Yes, about the FT also has Keir Starmer's Labour is asking the right question. Sorry, no, let me go back to what I was saying before here. So you talked about the union. Oh, damn it. Why did I move that? So to fight for our union, our environment. So of course the environment is taking a massive beating at the moment. Who do you think owns Sky News? Yes, it's an ex-Rupert Murdoch outfit. It's no longer owned by Rupert Murdoch. He sold it off some years ago. But the thing about Sky News is that it's good on some things. It's not very good on others. But when it's good on something, it is pretty good. There are some really terrible journalists that need to be called out. But generally, what they provide is pretty good. The environment, the rule of law, family life. What is this about? Like, the Labour Party are going to conserve family life. Is this about the breakdown in the family? Is this about, related to Boris Johnson? I don't know. We're going to force, deadbeat dads to look after their children. Is that what it's going after the Boris Johnson brigade? And the careful bond between this generation and the next. I think this is really good because there's a lot of older generation people who would normally vote Tory and have voted Tory all their life, but they're looking at their grandchildren or their children and saying, wait a minute, our children and grandchildren are not able to get on the property ladder. They're not able to get the good jobs that we were able to have. Like at the beginning of this crisis that's facing the latest generation and the previous latest generation, not so much for Generation X, but for Generation Z and millennials, it's been really tough and it's getting tougher. And, at the beginning of this saga, the beginning of this crisis, a lot of the older generation, not everyone, of course, but a lot of the older generation were like, well, when I was growing up, when I was in my 20s, I had a good job and I was able to buy a house and a car and pay the bills. And, we went on holiday twice a year or once a year or something like that. And, when times were tough, we cut back and we got by. Why aren't the young people doing the same thing today? Not realizing that house prices have gone through the roof. Inflation has eaten into wages a great deal, and people are earning less today than they were 10 years ago on average. Everything is more expensive, and the older generation, when their children are going, for example, to university, oh sure, it's great to see you on the stream, when they're going to university, for example, and they have to rent out a flat or shared accommodation, the parents or grandparents realize, whoa, it's not like back in my day. Or if their children go to the bank to get a loan, they're told, well, you need to have X amount deposit. And, they can't save that up because they're renting or they're just not earning enough money. So it's, I think the older generation are starting to see this and they understand that actually the Tories have not done a good job. Things are more difficult for our children or our grandchildren. And I think it's a case of bridging. I think the Labour Party are trying to bridge the two generations. So they're trying to reach out also to the older generation, say, we're here to help your children or your grandchildren. And I think some political campaign could be very good at doing that, reaching out to those older voters and saying, look, traditionally you vote for the Conservatives. We understand that. But we're here to help your children or grandchildren. You're okay. You have your home. You're retired. You're living off your pension. You're okay. But we need to look after your children too. Anyway, moving on. Keir Starmer, Labour's asking the right questions. So, okay, some of this is from the Financial Times. Okay, so it's going to rub a few people the wrong way, but I think it's an interesting article. It says here, when Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party crashed in 2019 to its worst electoral defeat since the 1930s, restoring it to anything near electability was seen as work for far more than one parliament. that Keir Starmer was able to stand before his party conference with a double-digit opinion poll lead ahead of the next year's election is thanks in part to the Conservatives' bizarre squandering of their own opportunity. It is, though, also a reflection of the journey Labour has made under his leadership. Labour still has work to do to lock in sufficient support from business, investors and the wider electorate. But Starmer has restored to Labour a plausibility that Corbyn had thrown away. I don't fully agree with all of this. Yes, I'm not going to go down the road of complaining about Jeremy Corbyn, okay? I've mentioned that before. Just for people who don't know, I like Jeremy Corbyn as a human being. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a decent human being. And I think when he became Labour leader, he wanted to win elections and he wanted the best for the British people. Unfortunately, I don't think he was very good at selling those ideas. And I think, unfortunately, he had a lot of baggage with him that the right-wing media were able to take advantage of, use against him and use against the Labour Party. And they're still trying to do it today. You know, they keep pulling out, what about Jeremy Corbyn? What about Jeremy Corbyn? Even though he's no longer a Labour MP. And even if the Labour Party have distanced themselves from him, the attack line from the Labour Party is, well, Liz Truss is still a member of your party and she done a lot more damage than Jeremy Corbyn did. Jeremy Corbyn wasn't even elected he didn't run the country. But it's a pathetic line of attack. But I think what the Labour Party have been doing since 2020 is distancing themselves from Corbyn. And in a way, and I'm going to rub people the wrong way, and this is not a criticism of Corbyn himself, but you have to do this. If you lose an election, you have to separate yourself from the people in charge, not so much the policies. And I've already said a number of times the policies were really good. It's just it wasn't possible to sell them. You had to fight an uphill battle against the right-wing media, who were determined to stop Corbyn from becoming leader of the country, using all sorts of dirty tricks. Starmer has been able to get round that by jettisoning that part of the Corbyn belief and you know the centre left or left wing within the party. It's been a scorched earth policy, but it seems to be working. The anti-Semitism row proved fatal for the resurgence of socialism. I voted for Labour when Corbyn was leader, and oh my man, he has major flaws. Shocking. There were a whole load of things, like for example when it came to Brexit, but I think his fundamental problem was that he wasn't available for interviews. He wasn't setting the narrative. He was allowing the media to set the narrative. And you can't do that. You have to be setting the narrative. He should have been going on the BBC every possibility he had. He should have gone on James O'Brien's show. He should have gone to the right-wing media, gave them interviews, sat down with them, explained his situation to undermine their narrative against him. But he didn't do that. He allowed them to write the narrative. And then people, you know, when they were being interviewed, which party did you vote for? I voted for the Tories. Why? Well, because Jeremy Corbyn is in bed with the IRA or something like that. So that was always going to be a problem for him, but he had to set the narrative. He had to set the record straight before the right-wing media did that. And maybe it was wishful thinking. Maybe it wasn't possible. But once again, just to say, I think he's a decent man. I think he's a good guy. You know, the accusations of anti-Semitism against him are completely unfounded and ridiculous. There are problems within every party, I think, when it comes to anti-Semitism. You can't, unfortunately, root it out completely. There will always be people who are dodgy within every party. And especially if you have a big party like the Labour Party or like the Conservatives, you're going to have troubled individuals within those parties. It goes on to say the Labour leader is criticised by some for having an overly safety-first approach. Indeed, headline policies announced by Conservative Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in recent weeks seemed determined to grab attention and present him, not Starmer, as the radical candidate, delaying some targets to achieve. I think the timing was perfect. You had the Tory party conference imploded, and if you look at if you contrast them, and even if you don't have to be a Labour Party supporter to see this or member to see this. If you compare the two, the Conservatives was very negative. They've been in power for 13 years, and instead of actually saying this is what we're going to do going forward, stick with us, everything was negative. We're going to axe HS2. We're going to scrap net zero policies. We're going to ban stuff. We're going to go backwards. It was always about everything was negative. There was nothing positive. There was nothing about one of the great things that Rishi Sunak could have pointed to was the Windsor Framework. That was an agreement that received complete support, massive support in the House of Commons. It's been welcomed by the Americans and the European Union and the government in Ireland, but he didn't mention it at all. Every time it buffers, Suella Braverman laughs. I'm blabbing here away, and you're probably not even hearing me. Unfortunately, on my side, it says everything is okay. Okay. All right, let's go to a comedy moment, and I'll see if I can fix some of these problems. See you on the other side.
We face the fight of our lives.
Stand up and fight.
Stand up and fight.
Say it again.
Stand up and fight.
Very good, very powerful.
We are the party and country that stood up and fought Nazis and fascists.
Don't cut to her, cut to someone else. No, not Gove, he looks like a burst stomach. Get back to Penny.
We are the party and country that stood up for democracy.
No, democracy is dodgy ground, Penny, given that our last two prime ministers got into office because they won some sort of Tory raffle.
Now, conference, I happen to know...
Where are you going? Don't leave the podium. You're not talented enough to leave the podium. Honestly, she spends one day walking around a church carrying a big sword whilst dressed like a bottle of posh hand soap, and she thinks she's Wolf of Wall Street.
So if you remember nothing else...
Everyone's forgotten everything already, so...
Remember this.
Don't say stand up and fight.
Stand up and fight.
Stop saying stand up and fight.
Stand up and fight for your communities.
Against who? Godzilla? The 50-foot woman? I mean, what does any of this mean?
Because when you stand up and fight...
Yes, go on.
The person beside you stands up and fights.
Not really. It depends on the situation and, whether
And when our party stands up and fights...
An angel gets its wings?
The nation stands up and fights.
No, it doesn't. It's never done that. And right now, this nation would rather vote for a wasp's nest in a pit bull's mouth than vote for the Conservative Party again.
And when our nation stands up and fights...
Let me guess, other nations stand up and fight.
Other nations stand up and fight.
This isn't even Tory rhetoric right now. This is just a spilled bag of Scrabble tiles falling out of your stupid mouth.
And they stand up and fight for the things upon which the entire progress of humanity depends.
What things?
Freedom.
Do you see why I don't want to do this character anymore?
Poor guy, it's depressing, isn't it? Oh my goodness. Okay, let's move on to something slightly serious. Much more serious. UN says that there is clear evidence of war crimes committed in Gaza and Israel. There is already clear evidence that war crimes may have been committed in the latest explosion of violence in Israel and Gaza, the UN's Human Rights Council said. In a statement, the UN's independent International Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory called for all those who have violated international law and targeted civilians to be held accountable for their crimes. That's not going to happen. We're seeing crimes against humanity taking place on both sides. You have what Hamas have been doing over the last number of days, targeting civilians and the military, but targeting civilians, taking people hostage, taking them back into Gaza to be used as some sort of bargaining chip or a human shield. And then the response from the Israeli government is, we're going to... Well, it says here, the Commission said that it is gravely concerned by Israel's announcement of a complete siege on Gaza. A complete siege, a sort of medieval siege. The withholding of water, food, electricity and fuel will undoubtedly cost civilian lives and constitute collective punishment. That's what it is. It is collective punishment. You're punishing the entire population of Gaza because of the actions of a few. Now, the Israeli government and the Israeli military will say, well, if these people are hiding in the civilian population, then what other way can we achieve this? They will say that it's much more humane to carry out an airstrike on an individual building than to send in tanks. Well, what are they going to do? Well, they're planning to send in tanks. So it's no longer a case of so-called precision strike airstrikes. Or using drones. We're going to send in the military. And of course, you're going to see fights building by building, street by street, and it's going to be an absolute massacre. There is no other way around this. And I'm really concerned about the people. And this is the problem. This is not so much a Palestinian versus Israeli issue. This is where you have the extremes in charge. You have Hamas, who want to destroy the state of Israel. That's part of their charter. It's one of the principles of their charter. And you have a right-wing government. Now, this is the most right-wing government. There are people in the current Israeli administration who've been telling the Palestinians, you need to flee. And they're, well, where can we flee to? Well, flee to Egypt. We don't care. Just get the hell out of there. We don't give a crap about you. Flee to Egypt. And then what happened? The border crossing between Gaza and Egypt was attacked today. So you're telling people, get the hell out of there. There's one way out, and we're going to actually destroy that crossing. We're going to attack that crossing. How is that legal? How is that justified? It's not. So you have the extremists on one side begging. This, what is the motivation here by Hamas? Which of course is working hand in hand with Iran and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Look, I hate talking about this because my knowledge of this is extremely limited, and I fear that I'm going to say something really stupid. But what I know is that you have, and I think it's pretty clear for most people to see, you have an entity in Gaza, Hamas, who's not interested in looking out in the welfare of the people of Gaza. They're not interested in peace. They're not interested in ending the blockades. They're not interested in ending the terrible situation the people of Gaza are under. And then on the other side, you have an Israeli government, the most right-wing so far, who's not interested in peace, not interested in protecting civilians, who just wants to go in guns blazing and to hell with the consequences. Now, there is Haaretz, which is a moderate newspaper and journalists in Israel, who have condemned Palestine is not allowed a military. Yes, that's an important point as well. Haaretz, the newspaper, was criticizing the Prime Minister. So saying that he is the one who is responsible here, the Israeli Prime Minister, because he had spent most of his time focusing on internal corruption problems, internal political problems, and not focusing on the protection of the Israeli people, and not making sure that, how did this take place? How is it possible that thousands of militants or terrorists, whatever you want to call them, were able to cross the border in a few hours and do so much damage? This was not supposed to be possible. It says here, Israeli military claims shells fired from Syria aimed at Israel. So now we have Syria getting involved. So first we have, of course, Gaza and Hamas from Gaza. Then we have Lebanon. And now it seems also Syria is getting involved. Now, I doubt it's the Syrian government, but it could be elements who are sympathetic to Hamas. It's EU warns Elon Musk over disinformation about Hamas attack on X on Twitter. EU has issued warning to Elon Musk over the alleged disinformation about the Hamas attack on Israel, including fake news and repurposed old images on X, which is formerly known as Twitter. Yes, and I've seen this before. I've seen a lot of these images already, where you see images of people being attacked, or you see militants or whatever, or some sort of fighting going on. And the problem with this is that this is old footage from another period, or not even from within the region, and it's for clicks, for likes and clicks, because these videos will get shared around and then people make money out of it because it attracts advertising revenue. It's insane. Now, will Elon Musk reply to this and clamp down on it? Probably not, because he's not really all that concerned about these things. So, you know, once again, you have the European Commission stepping in here and being the adult in the room. Now, I've been critical of the European Union as well when it came to ending funding. So it seems they have done a U-turn on that. There was news of the European Union, the European Commission, cutting off funding to the people of the Palestinians. You know, once again, this is money that's been sent to help people. It's not about helping Hamas. And of course, some of that money is going into the West Bank, which is not, is not being run by Hamas at the moment. David McGuinness, thanks so much for that super chat. Evening all. Sorry I'm late. Naughty step for me. And don't worry about that. Great to see you. And guys, remember to check out Indie Truck Davies, the YouTube channel, The Two Davies. So this, unfortunately, is going to attract a lot of misinformation, and it's important that somebody stands up and puts pressure on the likes of Elon Musk or Facebook or whatever the social media outlet is, to make sure that any false information is taken down immediately, and those who have been spreading it are either informed that it's a mistake, or if they continue to do it, are blocked or banned. There have been, it's very interesting that some of the politicians who've come forward actually have personal stories connected to what's happening at the moment. Humza Yousaf, who is of course the Scottish First Minister, calls for UK to push for Gaza humanitarian corridor. Now, not to make fun of this, not to make light of the situation, but he reached out to James Cleverly, who's the Foreign Secretary. Maybe he should have asked James Cleverly not to put in a humanitarian corridor, because as soon as the SNP asks something of the British government's automatic response is no. So maybe you should say, don't do this, and the British government would probably do it because out of spite. Because as soon as the SNP or the Scots ask for something, the British government say no. Anyway, Scotland's First Minister Humza Yousaf has called on the UK Foreign Secretary to push for the establishment of a humanitarian corridor to evacuate civilians from Gaza. Yousaf revealed on Monday that his wife Nadia's parents, who live in Dundee, are trapped in Gaza and struggling to find safe passage. In a letter to James Cleverly on Tuesday, Yousaf reiterated his condemnation of the abhorrent terrorist actions of Hamas. Too many innocent people have already lost their lives as a consequence of these completely unjustified and illegitimate attacks by Hamas, Yousaf wrote. He added, innocent men, women and children cannot and should not pay the price for the actions of a terrorist group. Collective punishment of innocent civilians cannot be justified and will do nothing to set the conditions for peace in the region. Yousaf continued, as a close friend and ally of Israel, I therefore ask the UK government to call on the government of Israel to ensure innocent civilians are protected and to be put in place an immediate ceasefire to allow the safe passage of civilians through the Rafah border. Furthermore, it should open a humanitarian corridor into Gaza and allow supplies, including food, fuel, water, and medical supplies, for those civilians who are trapped, helpless, and cannot leave. I don't want to turn this into, a Brexit argument, but if the UK was still a member of the European Union, it would have more sway over the European Union, and I think the European Union has more sway over Israel than the UK has. So I really hope what the Scottish First Minister is calling for comes to pass. I really hope he's successful in this. But you have a diminished UK. If this goes through, I don't know whether even if James Cleverly goes with this and says, yeah, actually, let's put pressure on Israel to do this. What pressure can he apply? Sadly. That's if he cares. I don't know if James Cleverly actually cares, but if he does care, what pressure can he apply? If the UK was a member of the European Union, you could say, let's work together with the European Union to put pressure on Israel to create these humanitarian corridors. Hopefully the European Union is listening. Hopefully the United States is listening, and they demand this. But unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen because there's a massive amount of rage in Israel at the moment, particularly from the government, and the government want to flex their muscles and they want to show we're going to create an unbearable situation, a collective punishment, unfortunately. Late to this issue, so pardon my ignorance and school me, how many people in Gaza that they hoped to evacuate? Isn't Gaza a small state? Yeah, there are 2.5 million people living in Gaza. One Israeli minister, I think it was interviewed on Sky, I believe it was, and she said she was pressured on where should the people go, and she said, well, they can go to Egypt, but Egypt doesn't want to take in a huge number of refugees because you're talking about 2.5 million people, and not all 2.5 million people can go. Let's say even half of them, 1 million refugees going into Egypt. This is the question. This is the point that we have been trying to point out to the Brexiteers and the racists and bigots when they're saying, buffering again. When we talk about safe countries, if 1 million people moved out of Gaza today, or tomorrow, or this week into Egypt, what do you think would happen in Egypt? And Egypt don't want all these refugees. So this would destabilize Egypt. And then what would happen in Egypt? There could be a backlash and it could collapse the government. Then what would happen? Refugees would be leaving from Egypt to Europe. This is the issue here. Cutting out, bro. So it's not me. It's not just me with the buffering. I honestly don't understand what's happening with these buffering because I don't have anything else open. So oh God. It's okay still. Humza has skin in the game. He understands the situation. Thanks, David. Yes. I'm really concerned about that. I really do hope that it will be sorted out. I hope his parents-in-law are able to get out. I believe they're there on holiday to visit relatives, and it's really concerning because it's hitting so many people, and unfortunately there is no sign of the Israeli government pulling back. They want to go like the hammers of hell, unfortunately, because as I said before, you have this extreme right-wing government. It's like Donald Trump's administration. Do we take it easy or slowly? It's like having UKIP in charge. Not even the Tory party, but UKIP. maybe some people would like to see, there probably are factions within Egypt that would like to see the Egyptian government collapse or see some sort of trouble. So, but Israel doesn't want to see Egypt collapse or Egypt in trouble, because then it could become a problem for Israel. You don't want to have more problems on your doorstep. Just one more thing on this, and then I promise we'll move on to Suella Braverman. You're looking forward to Suella Braverman. Hopefully this doesn't buffer too much.
Years, Israel has stood as the ultimate guarantor of the security of Jewish people around the world, so that the atrocities of the past could never happen again. And let there be no doubt, the United States has Israel's back. We will make sure the Jewish and democratic state of Israel can defend itself today, tomorrow, as we always have. It's as simple as that. These atrocities have been sickening. We're with Israel. Let's make no mistake. Thank you.
So the US is, of course, backing Israel 100%, and that's what I mean. Is there any request there for humanitarian corridors? Is there any talk about, holding back and making sure that, trying to have a ceasefire, trying to put pressure on both sides to stop this? No. The US is saying, yeah, you have our back. Don't worry. Whatever you want to do, we'll give you the full support. I don't know how long this will last, because, once the death toll starts to rise and increase dramatically, I think there's going to be pressure on Israel to pull back, to say, wait a minute, you've gone too far now. So at the moment, a lot of countries around the world are throwing their support behind Israel, but I think as this goes on, it's going to start to change. Because it's, one thing is like attacking Hamas, but if you're seeing building after building, children, elderly people, women and children being killed, and you're saying, well, we're fighting terrorism, it becomes more and more difficult to justify that, especially if you're sending in ground forces. So the Free Speech Brigade, I imagine they are up in arms over this, but probably not, because the so-called free speech people are free speech for things that they like, and don't give a crap about things they don't like. Waving Palestinian flag may be criminal offence, Braverman tells police. The Tories and the Brexiteers and the far right are always complaining about, why aren't the police out catching criminals, catching burglars, stopping people who are breaking into people's homes or robbing elderly people or shoplifting? Why aren't the police out, dealing with those real crimes? And now you have Suella Braverman asking the police to stop people from waving flags. Whether you like the flag or not, and one thing is a Hamas flag, if you want to say, look, we want to crack down on this, but no, it's not Hamas flag she wants to ban, it's the Palestinian flag. Colin, thanks so much for that super chat. Thanks for that support, Colin. Waving a Palestinian flag or singing a chant advocating freedom for Arabs in the region may be a criminal offence, Suella Braverman has told senior police officers. Do the police officers, when she meets them, go, oh crap, what is she going to try and push us? What direction is she going to push us in this day? Jesus, fascist Jewish state to the fascist Home Secretary. Joy Max. Max, can we talk about Brexit? I think I've run out of stories. This might be... No, there's actually another story I want to cover, which is... there's nothing really happening in Brexit today, unfortunately. Unless it's not for EU labelling on food. We could touch on that, but I'm not sure if I have the story up ready. Anyway... her words, which followed deadly attacks by Hamas on Israelis and the military response, will deepen concern freedom of speech advocates and members of the Muslim community. In the letter, Braverman said police should not restrict themselves to potential offences related to the promotion of Hamas, a proscribed organisation. This is not the police's job. The police's job is to maintain the peace. Now, if there are two factions, this is why the police are normally there to separate protesters. is to maintain the peace, to de-escalate. The police's job is not to go around removing people's flags. It shouldn't be their job. Mad Monk says to David McGuinness, George and I have moved the drinking part of the Wednesday night club to Tuesday due to me working on Wednesday night, but we still have the online Wednesday club evening call. Okay, thanks very much for using me as a conduit. It's appreciated, but I'm sure you could have sent him a WhatsApp or something. But I appreciate that, Mad Monk. Thanks for that. Feel free to use me as a conduit in the future. It's not just explicit pro-Hamas symbols and chants that are the cause for concern. I would encourage police officers, encourage police to consider such chants such as "Free from river to the sea, Palestine will be free." So you're not allowed to say stuff. Is that like be free? Like, I understand what they're talking about, that they would like a state of the Palestinian state to be restored to where it goes from the river. I forgot the name of the river, the bad me, to the Mediterranean. I understand, but why should people be put in prison for saying that? Would people be put in prison for chanting it? What if you're reading it? Is she going to start banning books next? Should be understood as an expression of violent desire to see Israel erased from the world, and whether its use is in certain contexts may amount to a racially aggravated Section 5 public order offence. I would encourage police to give similar consideration to the presence of symbols such as the swastika at anti-Israel demonstrations. Context is crucial. Behaviours that are legitimate in some circumstances, for example, the waving of the Palestinian flag, may not be legitimate, such as when it's intended to glorify acts of terrorism. How do you identify? So if somebody who is anti-Hamas, for example, from the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, they're not supportive of Hamas, it's a more secular organization, are they allowed to wave the flag? They're not calling for the destruction of Israel. They're just talking, they want to have a peaceful two-state solution. Palestine is the world's biggest prison. I believe, it's the world's biggest open prison. I think that was a statement by the United Nations, actually. Thanks, David. Today in Brexit sucks again. Pretty much, yes. So this is insane, but of course this is Suella Braverman being Suella Braverman. Unfortunately, Suella Braverman will be out of government, out of power pretty soon. Now, unfortunately, Suella Braverman is in a pretty safe seat, so she may be hanging about in Parliament when Keir Starmer becomes Prime Minister. But unfortunately also, she's going to be in power for another year anyway. So she has still time to do damage. I don't see the police following through with this because it makes no sense whatsoever. So what if somebody's waving a flag from a car? What if somebody is walking down the street not during a protest and waving the flag? Are they going to be arrested as well? What if a delegation from the PLO come to Britain for talks with the British government and they have flags? Are they going to be arrested? None of this makes any sense, but this is just Suella Braverman not understanding reality and trying to act tough. Oh, goodness. Okay, guys, I want to cover a completely different story, but this is, hopefully, if it works, there's no buffering, about the problems people are facing at the moment, unrelated to the stories we've covered so far.
On your record because you're making yourself intentionally homeless, so we're making an offer.
But I never said that I wanted to move.
You don't get a choice.
If a homeless applicant turns down a property, the council can discharge their duty and offer no further help.
So can you tell me how this is? Can you tell me how this is suitable for me?
We get properties coming as and when
So
they come
you want
in,
me
we
to
match
go all the
them
way
up.
to Birmingham and waste my time for what? 'Cause that's not fair. It's not fair at all. That I've waited 9 months. Not even that. Since 2013 October, I was homeless.
Okay, so
it's just not gonna.
So I just need to know: are you refusing this offer of private rented accommodation?
At the end of the day, the council will do what they want to do.
Okay.
They will never understand what's going on with me or the people in my position.
But making your offer.
Bottom line is, I can't move to Birmingham.
So what I'm going to do is I'll do the discharge duty letter. I'll be down
No,
in
you
15
can't do the
minutes.
discharge duty letter right now. I haven't exactly said yes or no, so you can't.
You said you
can't
don't want to
put
go to
words in my
Birmingham.
mouth.
You're saying yes then to go.
Well, if I need to go and view it, then I need to go and view it, don't I?
You don't view, you will move in. When we do view...
What the fuck? So, she's been told, okay, we have a property for you. It's in Birmingham. I'm not sure where she is. It doesn't say where she is, but I presume it's far away. It's in Birmingham. She's not saying it's on the other side of the city or it's 10 miles away. It's in Birmingham, so I imagine it's quite far. And she has to take it without seeing it. Like, she doesn't know where it is. She doesn't know whether it's on the top floor of it. Doesn't know if it has black mold all around the windows and around the walls. She doesn't know anything about it, but she has to make a decision now. Is this a real interview? I believe it is. This was conducted, I think this was recorded by Channel 4, but this is the council saying to people, and I think people in the chat would confirm this. This happens all the time. The people go to the council, they need a home, and the council say, we have a home for you, but we can't show it to you because it's somewhere else.
Viewings in Birmingham, you don't just go and view, because a long distance, you actually go and move in. This is what happens, yeah? I really need to move on now, if you're taking this or not.
Obviously, you need to move on. You need to go and do this to other people. But this is my life here. I've got questions. You can't tell me.
No, that's fine. I'll answer your questions.
After
But
5
if they're
PM
assessment
today,
questions,
you're going to go home to your happy family, to your roof. I need like 10, 15 minutes to think about this.
Okay.
The big life change
Okay,
move
so
that
do
you're
you
making me
wanna-
do.
do you wanna go-
I've lived in Hounslow all my life.
Okay, so do you want to go and think about it and come back?
Yeah, I need to go.
Yeah, okay.
Jesus, where did this member of staff do our training with Priti Patel or Suella Braverman? Is this where are these the training officers? Housing officer are a special breed. What a horrible way to treat people. Yes, it doesn't matter about the condition. They offer you one property, and if you don't take it, they'll take you off the waiting list. Have to take it and then fight for someone else. My God. And if you're on the waiting list for 6 months or years, you don't have a choice. You go back on the waiting list. You go back to the end of the queue. Like this. So she has to make a decision in 15 minutes that will completely change her life. She'd have to move. I don't know the outcome of this. I haven't seen, but I would imagine, she probably said, "Well, I'll have to go to Birmingham because I have no other choice. I have to up sticks, move, say goodbye to family." As was said in the chat, the accent is probably London. So, London to Birmingham. It's like moving to another country. No offense meant by this. I don't mean it in the sense that it is another country, but it's like the distance is like another country. This is insane. Sack that person. Couldn't see that she was wearing jackboots. That's the way to talk to people. And it's not right. My daughter was at a council private ownership, and it was a disaster. Buffering. Okay, guys. So we'll call it a night tonight because the buffering is just too much. So I want to say thank you so much to everyone who came on tonight. Thank you so much to everyone who sent super chat. Greatly appreciated. This is life in England. It seems to be the case. Yes. It seems to be much more humane in Scotland. I think also the issue in Scotland is probably because, and this is not one thing, is maybe the councils are a bit more humane. But also maybe because Scotland, in a sense, is smaller, that the cities are closer together. maybe it's easier for, I don't know, maybe not. The council hire better people maybe in Scotland. So guys, have a great week. I'll see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. Hopefully I'll sort out these buffering issues. Before we go, of course, we have our one for the road, and hopefully this works before the buffering kills it. Hope you enjoy.
We can do all this because I'm stopping all phases of HS2 beyond Birmingham. Okay, and they're just editing some jump cuts and some banging house music as usual, and we'll be done. And remember, don't tell anyone about this until after conference. Otherwise we'll spend all week talking about it, and everyone will know I was lying when I said I hadn't made a decision yet. Actually, we've got a bit of time. Maybe we should bash out a few more of these for the future? Save us setting all the cameras again? Yeah? Okay, and that's why, with a heavy heart, and after listening to all of the debate and conversation over the last few weeks, I've decided to withdraw this country from the European Court of Human Rights, and instead replace it with a great British Court of Human Rights. Brackets, but not for those people. Close brackets. Okay, what else? Many congratulations to England for winning the World Cup. Your opponents didn't stand a chance, and you played some excellent rugby. And you played some excellent cricket. And you played some excellent netball. Just use whichever one we need. Still got some time? Okay, a few more. We all know the real scourge affecting this country, and that's why I've decided to ban everything woke. In fact, we'll increase the age at which people can buy The Guardian by 1 year every year. Yeah, okay. When I took on this job, I didn't expect to have to invade France, but they haven't stopped the boats, so I'm afraid we have no choice. This is fun, isn't it? I have sent word to the alien mothership currently hovering above London that I am prepared to talk, as long as they don't try to get us to reverse Brexit. Just one more? I am delighted by these results and honoured to be re-elected as your Prime Minister for the next 5 years. Yeah, don't worry about that. We can only do stuff that might actually happen.
I think this is one of the best yet. So guys, have a great week. I'll see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. Thanks once again to everyone who came on. Thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job. And thanks to everyone who sent a super chat. Greatly appreciated. Have a great week. Take care and good night.